When we speak of law school, people often picture dramatic courtroom scenes and wearing suits, which isn't wrong, but that's not even 10% of the whole picture. So, what is law school really like? My name is Angel. I just finished my first year of law school at LSE, and I think now is a very good time to be talking about law school because I still have some memories of being a normal person and not yet so highly indoctrinated into the lawyer mindset. It's interesting because people either think that studying law is cool or I'll never be a lawyer, but they have completely no idea what law is about. I can't blame anyone though because that's a rule of law problem instead. Let me explain. There's actually many fields of law. In first year, we get compulsory modules, but afterwards you basically get to choose whatever field you like, ranging from competition law to EU law to feminist legal theory. So if you like sports, you can also do sports law, which talks about how sports governing bodies are organized, what regulatory constraints they operate under, and what sports justice system looks like. Even within more stereotypical law subjects like criminal law, we also explore bigger philosophical ideas such as paternalism, whether it is right for the state to intervene in certain scenarios, and for contract law, the ideas of economic efficiency and business common sense come through a lot. I really like the multidisciplinary nature of the subject because you get to explore so many areas without having to just pick one. It works very well with people like me who feel scared about commitment. Law school is infamously known for a decreasing amount of reading, and I can assure you that this is very true. We read around 200 pages every week on average. On good weeks, we get readings that have long bibliography, so we read less than it seems, but we still take credit for it nonetheless. You see, there's so much readings that we need to do. It makes perfect sense that complaining about it becomes our number one personality. So instead of saying, "How are you?" law students usually greet each other with, "Have you done your reading?" And there's only one correct answer: no. We read statutes, cases, and academic opinions. In short, statutes are laws made by a legislature, passed through a formal legislative process, and cases are judicial decisions by courts, often involving interpretation of relevant statutes. I used to find it very difficult to read cases because of the way they structure their sentences. There's a lot of commas, but no full stops. However, there is no way for you to escape case laws. You see, there is something called familiarity breeds fondness. I don't know why and I don't know how, but gradually I have become fond of case laws. I find reading it quite enjoyable and it allows me to understand judges' decisions a lot better than reading a textbook would. I don't think anyone can confidently say that they have carefully read through everything that they are given, because I mean, you have other things going on in your life that needs your time and attention. Like, don't pretend you're not internet addicted. So it's also a skill to be able to skim through a text and identify what's the important part of it. If you think that AI helps doing the work, I assure you that it does not. AI is my best friend, it helps me a lot, but sometimes you need to acknowledge that your best friend is not as smart and you shouldn't rely on your best friend for everything in the world. I tried using Claude, Gemini, ChatGPT, asking them different questions, and they basically gave me the same answer, which is a less accurate version of the abstract. It's quite frustrating to use AI because when I use AI, it means I don't want to use my brain. But every single time, I end up needing to use my brain to identify whether it is giving me shit answers. So it's just much more straightforward if I read it myself. A lot of people think that to study law, you must be really good at arguing and debating. That is not true. A lot of people I know don't have the debate or public speaking background, and they're still very good at a subject. In my very honest opinion, many people who enjoy arguing for the sake of arguing actually may not do very well in this subject. Most of the time, we're really just trying to understand what the law is rather than giving our own views. Because the law itself is already quite complicated to begin with, we don't really give our own opinion before we truly understand what we are dealing with. I think the only quality you need is to be able to deal with a vast amount of readings. I guess that's why most people I know in law school are introverts rather than extroverts. because they are comfortable with sitting in the library or in a room the entire day to finish a set of readings. But again, that's just a stereotype, and I assure you that there are also extroverted people in law school who are equally good. So just remember that to be good at studying law, you don't really need debate skills, but you definitely need good comprehension and analytical skills, and the patience to read and reread a long piece of text. Like other normal uni students, we have lectures and classes. In my school, classes are typically around 10 to 15 students paired with a professor or a PhD student as your teacher, and during each class, you get to discuss and talk about the topics you've learned from the lectures and assign readings. The teacher would ask questions, sometimes you get to prepare, sometimes not. So if no one volunteers to answer, the teacher would resort to the traditional Thaisian law school method of cold calling. If your name gets called, oh, congratulations, you're the chosen one. I think most people would be cold called at least once or twice in their lives where they don't know the answer to the question. Honestly, no one cares if you messed up, but for sure everyone knows that you messed up. So normally you would still be embarrassed and it will motivate you to work harder. People often assume that you will become a lawyer immediately after you graduate, unless you fail or something, but that is not true. After graduation, most people would become solicitors, which requires you to do another test to qualify as a trainee. For barristers, you need to do the bar professional training course and pupillage. Of course, you can also decide not to pursue a traditional legal career and do things like journalism or a school teacher at the risk of being called a failure. But the point is very simple, which is not all law students will end up as lawyers. And for those who like to judge people based on their jobs, I think they should donate more money to the charity. When I was choosing what to study in university, I was struggling between philosophy and law. They share a lot in common, discussing issues like what's the right thing to do? Should this person go to jail? I think I chose law mainly because it's more employable, but aside from that, the major difference is that law is an institutional practice that has to produce enforceable answers, not just sound arguments. Philosophy asks what's true, what's right, what's justified in principle, but law also needs to consider more of the practical aspects of stuff. Like if you ask a lawyer why someone would go to jail, they will tell you that, oh, it's because he offended the law. But if you ask a philosopher, they might proceed to ask, why should we obey the law? I think if you ask more questions, everything eventually becomes a philosophical question. Overall, I think law school is something that I enjoy. I like to be well-read to feel smart, but the process of reading is still pretty daunting at times and humbles me a lot. What a lot of people don't talk about is how law school is one of the best places to make friends, because you can easily trauma bond over readings and cold calling. It's kind of like you're facing a huge storm, but you experience it together with your friends, which is kind of romantic if you think about it. Anyway, if you're considering law school, there's a list of recommended readings in the video description that you should definitely check out. If you have questions, feel free to leave a comment and I'll get back to you. See you!